Hey guys, today we descend into a place even pilgrims never find. You're standing in the Vatican necropolis, deep beneath the Basilica of St. Peter. The air is stale, almost metallic, and the walls sweat faintly with condensation despite the dry Roman summer outside. You move past centuries-old tombs, marble slabs for forgotten bishops, ossuaries etched in Latin, and a bronze gate marked non plus ultra, nothing beyond this point. But tonight, you go further. Your guide says nothing. He gestures toward a patch of wall at the end of a corridor, where the fresco fades from view. There, hidden behind a curtain of shadows and 3 rusted hinges, is a hatch no tourist brochure has ever acknowledged. It's not ornate. Not papal. Not even ancient. It's industrial, thick bronze, acid-pitted, reinforced with rivets, and cold to the touch like it hasn't felt sunlight in centuries. Etched across the top are 3 symbols, an inverted triangle, a serpent swallowing its tail, and a Hebrew glyph, worn to the point of near erasure. A small plate beside the hatch bears no Latin inscription. Just coordinates. No one says where they point. But you note them anyway. Let's be honest, if this were real, you wouldn't make it past the 3rd tunnel. You turn around the moment the air turned metallic. Or the moment your flashlight flickered in rhythm with something breathing. So if you feel comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe and comment and give suggestions below the video, so that we can improve the video later and make you have a comfortable experience while watching our video. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from tonight, and what time it is. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lower yourself through the bronze hatch, boots clanging softly on a spiral stair that seems to go downward forever. The temperature drops. You count your breaths, not because you're afraid, but because they echo. At the base of the descent, the stone gives way to steel. A corridor runs forward, lit only by emergency strip lights embedded in the floor. The walls are covered with inscriptions, not in Latin, but something earlier. Proto-Semitic? Aramaic? The Vatican linguists won't say. If asked, they laugh politely and change the subject. Halfway down the corridor, a blast door looms, thicker, older, welded shut. A sign reads simply, Intra voces custodias. Enter only with voices guarding. Scholars argue over the translation. Some believe it refers to a kind of spiritual password. Others think it's metaphorical, designed to keep something in, not out. The first real anomaly was reported in 1944. A group of Swiss guards conducting seismic evaluations, cover story, earthquake preparedness, found a resonance in this tunnel that did not match Vatican bedrock. It pulsed in a perfect 17.3 Hz cycle. Low enough to feel, not hear. They called it a geological anomaly, but one officer described it more simply: the ground was breathing. What lies beyond that door? The Vatican says it's a disused archive. But infrared scans show something different, a temperature drop so severe it mimics cryogenic freezing, and within the coldest point, a rectangular object 6 feet long, and slightly wider than a human frame. Some whisper of a prison. Others of a vault. One whispered term shows up repeatedly in redacted documents, Thaliel. Hebrew for, dew of God. A name. Or a title. Possibly both. According to fringe lore, drawn from Gnostic scrolls and banned apocrypha, there was one among the watchers who fell first, not for pride, but for knowledge. His descent was not punished with exile, but with capture. And not by man, but by something older. A divine consensus. A locked room in the most secure religious site on earth. Historians still debate whether this entire substructure was built for containment, or for worship. You stare at the sealed door. You think you hear something beyond it. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the hatch remains sealed. And the Vatican isn't talking. You wake up thinking about basalt. Not the ornamental kind polished for fountains or kitchen counters, but the deep earth, pre-volcanic basalt that forms under pressure so ancient it predates agriculture. The kind that should never appear under Vatican City. Yet here you are. The chamber is hexagonal. Not by design, but by some quiet symmetry that feels imposed, not chosen. At its center rests a sarcophagus, black, unpolished, humming softly at the edge of awareness. It's not decorative. No hieroglyphs. No Latin. No crosses. No crucifixes. Just weight. The weight of something that wants to be forgotten. You move closer. The floor changes beneath your feet, from flagstone to something more granular. Dust. Ash. Ground bone. It's hard to tell. Your breath fogs slightly, even though it's Rome in summer. And there, on the side of the coffin, you see it, 6 lead seals, melted at their centers, as if someone tried to keep something in, and then changed their mind. The records say it was discovered in 1492, accidentally unearthed during early basilica renovations. But the object was already there when the Renaissance masons arrived. A black tomb under the white throne, as one frightened monk described it. Lead isotope analysis in the 1980s, quietly conducted by a Jesuit-trained metallurgist from Heidelberg, dated the casing to approximately 12,000 BCE. Older than the city of Jericho. Older than the wheel. Older than language, perhaps. Naturally, this caused problems. The Vatican discredited the testing and sent the scientist to Papua New Guinea on an extended mission of silence. He never returned. Still, rumors spread. Staff whispered of a deep hum that persisted even when the lights were cut. One technician claimed his pacemaker skipped every time he stood within 3 meters of the box. He filed 2 reports. Then quit. Then there's the theory. Not mainstream, of course. You won't find it in theology textbooks. But in the fringe circles, those where occult researchers cross paths with former seminary students and the occasional exorcist, it has a name, the anchor. Not a tomb. A tether. Some claim the entity inside is not dead, but bound. Not by rope or chain, but by geometry and intent. The sarcophagus, they believe, is not a burial chamber. It's a compression field. A dimensional knot. A holding cell designed not to kill, but to suspend. An old Coptic manuscript kept in the Bibliotheca Apostolica speaks of an angel who fell not to earth, but through it, drawn into a well of iron and sorrow. Some interpret this poetically. Others, less so. Those who've seen the coffin up close report dreams for weeks after. Not nightmares, necessarily, just dreams of height. Of standing above the earth, arms outstretched, watching stars from behind veils of glass. Some wake up weeping. Some do not wake up at all. One archaeologist, granted rare access in 2003, described the object in clinical terms. The basalt shows stress patterns inconsistent with quarrying. The mass is slightly denser than expected, and the acoustic profile, when tapped, produces a tone not found in naturally formed stone. There is no precedent for this in Roman or Etruscan material culture. The Vatican declined comment. Others are less cautious. A French occultist once claimed the object isn't of earthly origin at all. That it fell from the sky before the flood and was buried here long before Rome existed. He died mysteriously in a fire. His manuscripts survive, smoke-scarred, half-legible, yet unmistakable in tone. One passage reads, "The angel is not dead. Merely paused." The sarcophagus is not his grave. It is the last mercy. No one knows how deep the chamber truly goes. Some engineers who mapped the Vatican foundations in the 1970s found resonance patterns inconsistent with normal substructure. One seismic reading hinted at a hollow shaft below the sarcophagus, extending downward for over 800 meters. A Vatican geologist dismissed the claim as instrumental error. But the data was never released. Some researchers believe, others dismiss. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the sarcophagus remains. And it waits. In the Vatican Apostolic Library, there is a room without a name. You don't find it on public tours. You don't even find it in internal memos. It lies between archival shelves marked Apocryphae Vetera and a wall that doesn't match the blueprints. The wall itself is paper-thin stone, older than the floor beneath it. When you press your hand against it, it's warm. As if someone on the other side just exhaled. Inside that hidden room, kept in a case marked non-transferendum, is a codex known by 3 names. The Vatican calls it Liber Seclorum, the Book of the Blind. Occult circles call it the Codex of Silent Watchers. And one Jesuit diary simply labels it an inventory of things forgotten on purpose. The book is old. Much older than the paper it's written on. Bound in stitched animal skin, origin unknown, it contains 73 pages, each covered in minute script. Not Latin. Not Hebrew. Not Greek. But something in between. Linguists call it pre-Sinaitic script with Enochian overlays. A linguistic paradox. A tongue that should not coexist. The content? It begins as a genealogy. But not of men. It lists beings. Watchers. Gregori. Sons of heaven. Fallen, cast down not into flame, but into custody. Each entry contains a name, a sigil, and, curiously, a geographical coordinate. You check one. Deep in the Hindu Kush. Another. Beneath the ice shelf in Queen Maud Land. But the third is marked Vaticanum, Locus Petrinus. The name is smeared. Only a few letters are readable. T-H-L. Possibly Thamiel. Or Thaliel. Scholars argue endlessly over it. There is one illustration, halfway through the codex, a being with 6 wings, eyes sealed with gold thread, kneeling beneath a 7-pointed star. Around it, figures in robes hold tablets, not weapons. Binding by inscription. An old fringe theory suggests this codex is not original, but a copy. That the true version was carved into stone in an era before writing, and that only fragments were transcribed into vellum. One page has a footnote, written later, by a different hand, in Latin, "He is buried not by man, but beneath man, and Rome grows above him like fungus." In the 1970s, an Israeli archaeologist on temporary assignment was allowed to study the codex for 6 hours. He left the building and immediately fled to Jerusalem. His statement to reporters was brief: "It's not prophecy. It's a record of crimes. And we are the evidence." He never published again. Later that year, the Vatican sealed the room containing the codex and reinforced its casing with triple pane, radiation-resistant glass. Odd, for parchment. Some fringe circles believe the Vatican uses the codex as a map. A containment ledger. A field manual to identify where, and how, certain entities were not merely cast out, but anchored. The Church denies this, of course. They insist it's a medieval forgery, compiled by a mad monk in the 12th century. Except carbon dating places the vellum to 900 BCE. And ink analysis shows trace amounts of elements not found in any known scriptorium, thorium, bismuth, and something that glows under ultraviolet light, but not under infrared. Interdisciplinary confusion follows every test. One linguist likened translating the codex to trying to read a scream embedded in glass. Another refused to speak about it at all, saying only, "It's not meant for us." There is, however, one passage, near the end, marked with marginalia added in red. The hand is old. Cramped. Latin. It reads, "One fell not from sin, but from refusal. He would not become less than what he was." This line has fueled endless speculation. Is the being beneath the Vatican truly a fallen angel? Or is it something older, something that refused emotion, not divinity? No satisfactory explanation has emerged. The codex remains locked. The room remains unlisted. And somewhere, beneath St. Peter's bones, coordinates whisper like prayer. You move through the Vatican at night, guided not by faith, but by paint. Deep beneath the Apostolic Palace, in a corridor once used to house pilgrims during plague years, there is a chapel so rarely mentioned that even custodians speak of it with unease. It's listed in one inventory as Cella Penumbræ, the Shadow Chapel. Its walls are cold. Too cold for this depth. You flick your torchlight upward and catch the curve of a fresco that isn't supposed to exist. The subject is not Christ, nor Mary, nor even the saints. It's a figure kneeling, not in reverence, but in protest. Wings curled forward like a bird shielding itself from fire. The eyes are sealed shut with strands of red thread. The mouth is closed, too, but stitched, as though sound itself had been forbidden. No crucifixion. No resurrection. Just silence. Only fragments remain. According to a 19th-century restorer's journal, now hidden in the Vatican Museum's restricted annals, the fresco once extended across the entire apse. It depicted a descent, but not from heaven. The figure falls not through clouds, but through stone. Downward, past Roman ruins, through layers of prehistory, until it rests beneath the very chapel where it is painted. A recursion. And then, someone scrubbed it away. Not faded by time. Scrubbed. Deliberately. Violently. Chemical analysis from a 1963 conservation effort detected oxalic acid and powdered pumice, an abrasive used rarely, and only when the Church deems an image spiritually harmful. 3 popes reportedly issued quiet decrees to remove the presence from view. But only one Vatican archivist dared to write it down. His name was Father Lorenzo Balbi. He died in 1974, but his final letter, addressed to no one, filed under Miscellanea Reprobata, remains. It reads, "He is not bound by chains but by remembrance. Every time we show him, we loosen them. Every brushstroke is an opening." Some dismissed it as madness. But others noticed something strange. The fresco, though removed, returns faintly in photographs. Not to the naked eye, but to infrared. Digital cameras with long exposure pick up outlines, faint curves, circular motifs, and the unmistakable impression of a face behind a veil of paint. Not a human one. The mouth is always closed. This phenomenon is known, rather dryly, among internal archivists as residual chromaticity. A ghost image. A pigment echo. But one intern, who uploaded a filtered image to a private server in 2016, received a cease and desist within 24 hours, from both the Vatican and the Italian military. The image was removed. But it had already spread. A few frames still float around fringe forums. Pixelated. Distorted. But eerie. One shows the figure pointing, not upward, not to heaven, but downward, toward what appears to be a black spiral. Interpretations vary. Some believe it represents a vortex beneath the Vatican itself. Others believe it's merely artistic license. A metaphor for containment. Or punishment. But a few whisper of something else. That the fresco wasn't just a warning, it was a map. In early Christian apocrypha, particularly certain Syriac scrolls, there's a passage referencing the eye that sleeps beneath the temple, hidden by images that cannot be shown. The fresco may be a visual transcription of that phrase, one designed not to teach, but to seal. Art as exorcism. Art as prison lock. Historians still debate whether the chapel was ever open to the public, or if it was constructed as part of a very different purpose, a site of quiet pilgrimage for those who watch, and those who remember what others deny. One retired conservator simply called it the Chapel of Forgetting. But the paint remains. Under layers of lime wash, under Vatican protocol, under centuries of erasure, the outline is still there. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. And every time the light flickers, the outline sharpens. You find the letter folded into thirds, its ink browned, the seal half-flaked. It's kept in the Archivum Secretum, not under theology, but under Animalia non classificate. That category, as far as most Vatican librarians are concerned, doesn't exist. But the file is real. It's paper-thin and labeled only with a date, 1666. The author is Father Matteo Seraphinus, a Jesuit stationed in Rome during the Black Death's quieter resurgence. He was not famous. Not saintly. But his letter lingers. He wrote it on his deathbed. You begin reading it beneath a skylight that never quite matches the time of day, surrounded by catalog drawers with missing handles and brass nameplates etched in Greek. The air smells faintly of beeswax and cedar. That comforting scent churches use to mask decay. Father Seraphinus begins calmly. He recounts hearing a sound in the subcellars, beneath the catacombs of Calixtus, which, he insists, connect via hidden masonry to the underfoundation of St. Peter's Basilica. Officially, they don't. But when a Jesuit says, beneath, he usually means, beneath history. He describes entering a sealed corridor by accident, or providence, while following a flickering oil lamp that shouldn't have still been burning. At the end of that corridor, he writes, was the vigilant one, beneath the stone roots of the church. He capitalizes it, vigilant one. And here, the letter shifts tone. No more description. Just confession. He says he could not see the being itself, only the effect it had on everything around it, air that moved without wind, a scent like scorched linen and roses, walls that sweated in symmetrical droplets, as if reality were rejecting this presence. He writes, it has no name that we should say. It has no body, but it casts one. It speaks, but without sound, and I knew its voice as if I had already heard it at birth. He does not describe fear. He describes recognition. The rest of the letter is rambling. Delirious, perhaps. He refers to a set of bindings, made not with rope, but with remembrances. He claims the Vatican is not a seat of worship, but of containment. That its true sanctum lies not in the dome above, but the weight below. And he says one more thing. He dreams in ratios. 3 words. Oblique. Mathematical. Terrifying. Fringe numerologists obsess over this phrase. They've connected it to sacred geometry, ratios found in the layout of Vatican City itself. The spiral staircase beneath the library. The golden ratio present in St. Peter's Dome. The precise 333 steps from the outer basilica to the inner sacristy. Coincidence? Maybe. But, he dreams in ratios, appears again, this time in the margin of a 17th century Vatican architectural sketch, drawn in charcoal by an anonymous monk. The diagram depicts a sublevel chamber, shaped like a spiral eye. At the center, a square sarcophagus, flanked by 13 columns. Above it, no ceiling. Just the words, again, in Latin this time, in numeris dormiat. He sleeps in numbers. Father Seraphinus's letter ends not with prayer, but with silence. The last page is blank. But the envelope carries one more clue. On the back is a symbol drawn in red wax, a triangle inside a circle, pierced by a vertical line. Modern occultists would recognize it as a variation of the Solomonic containment sigil. The wax has hardened. But under ultraviolet light, a second seal appears, a 7-pointed star intersected by Hebrew letters, Yod, Vav, Resh. Wyvar. Possibly a name. Possibly an echo. When the letter resurfaced in 1989, a team of church historians reviewed it under the directive of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. Their final note? Likely apocryphal. No action necessary. But the note is unsigned. Some researchers believe the letter refers to an actual entity housed beneath Vatican Hill, possibly one of the bound watchers mentioned in the Codex of Silent Watchers. Others dismiss it as metaphor, or the delusion of a dying man exposed to too much monastic silence. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the phrase remains. He dreams in ratios. And somewhere beneath the stone roots of the world's holiest city, something still counts in silence. There's a phrase the archivists whisper when they think no one is listening: not every door leads to heaven. And in this case, not every basement leads to hell either, at least not metaphorically. You're standing beneath the apostolic palace, staring at a service elevator that doesn't go anywhere official. On paper, it stops at sublevel 4, the archival chambers. But one keycard, when inserted in reverse, unlocks a fifth button. No label. Just an embossed hexagon. The descent takes 19 seconds. No music. No floor chime. The light above flickers once, then steadies. You've arrived at the floor Vatican engineers call Pneuma Lock. It doesn't exist on any architectural diagrams. Not in 1600s building records. Not in Mussolini's detailed urban schematics. And not even in the digitized Vatican GIS system, mapped with satellite LiDAR in 2004. There's no entry for sublevel 5. But it exists. And it hums. The hallway is lined with brushed steel, not stone. Cold and too modern. Fluorescent lights flicker every 13 seconds, perfect intervals, confirmed by military-grade watches confiscated from technicians on the way out. The air is ionized, like after lightning. And the temperature? Exactly 3.3 degrees Celsius. Always. Security cameras are absent. Instead, small black orbs hang from the ceiling at 7-meter intervals. When you walk beneath one, you hear a barely perceptible click, like a door unlocking in the distance. But nothing opens. The walls are featureless, except for one thing: a series of black glass panels, waist-high, with no visible power source. Occasionally, they flash text. Always Latin. Often biblical. But one phrase recurs more than any other: ne tangite somnium. Do not touch the dream. At the end of the hall stands a final door. It's not locked with a key. It requires something far stranger. In the late 1980s, a linguist working on Bible codices was granted unprecedented access to Vatican sublevels for archival cross-referencing. According to his private journals, never published, he stumbled upon Pneuma Lock while looking for a rare Aramaic palimpsest. What he found instead was the final chamber. Sealed not by metal, but by voice recognition. But not your voice. His. The system reportedly only opens when it detects a vocal pattern matching the resonance found in certain Gregorian chants, specifically those recorded backwards, then reversed again. Some believe it's a layered encryption, one that responds to the frequency signature of a non-human harmonic. This aligns with a rumor first whispered by Vatican engineers in the 1970s, that beneath the chapel's lowest level, behind an unmarked door, there's a voiceprint vault tuned not to any cardinal, nor pope, but to a frequency recorded in the late 1500s by a blind Benedictine monk. He claimed the sound came to him in a dream. And when played, it causes the Pneuma Lock to flicker. Not open. Just flicker. In 2009, a whistleblower posted blueprints on a darknet theology forum, floor plans of a Vatican level labeled S5. The images vanished within hours. The poster? Never heard from again. But a cached version survives. It depicts a chamber beyond Pneuma Lock, labeled Thalamus Dei. The mind of God. Inside that chamber, a cube. 10 meters per side. Material, unknown. Reflectivity, perfect. Surface temperature, stable at -27 degrees Celsius. The note simply says, no doors. No windows. Emits low-frequency pulses. Contents unknown. One former Vatican physicist, interviewed anonymously, claimed that cube is a pressure vessel. Not for liquid. Not for gas. But for presence. He said the object inside it displaces time. That's when the interview was cut short. Whether this is metaphor, misdirection, or madness is impossible to say. The Church officially denies the existence of new Malak. They cite security, terrorism prevention, or outdated blueprints when pressed. But documents marked Clericus V5 Alpha continue to circulate, hinting at high-level containment protocols and biometric restrictions keyed not to identity, but faith resonance. Material culture has no answer for that. Some researchers believe the entire substructure is a psychological operation designed to distract from real Vatican secrets. Others believe the secret isn't the structure. It's what was built around it. And no satisfactory explanation has emerged. But New Malak is always cold. And the cube still hums. You wouldn't expect it to begin with a choir. In 1942, a Benedictine monastery outside Rome, Abbazia di Farfa, was tasked with creating archival quality recordings of ancient Gregorian chants. Wartime chaos made magnetic tape precious, but the Vatican insisted. For preservation, they said. But preservation of what? The project began as expected. Monks chanting in Latin, resonating off old stone, sacred harmonics traced back to Ambrosian rites. But one night, a technician left the phonograph running after the monks had finished. The machine captured a 6-minute segment of silence. Except it wasn't. When played backward, part of a routine check for tape warping, a voice emerged. Not speech. Not music. A chant. Low. Rhythmic. Like someone exhaling syllables older than language. It repeated a 5-syllable phrase, sung in a scale that doesn't exist in Western notation. The note spacing was almost crystalline. Too precise. Like architecture in sound. Audio experts at the Vatican tried to dismiss it as bleed-through. Residual harmonics. But when the same phrase was recorded again, 3 nights later, in a different chamber, the technicians began to panic. They played it backward. Slowed it down. Same voice. Same syllables. Same tone. But deeper. More layered. Almost as if the voice was responding. The phrase, when transcribed phonetically, resembled ancient Aramaic, but with fragments of Proto-Akkadian. Linguists disagreed on the exact translation. Some guessed, he remains beneath the eye. Others suggested, bound under lightless law. One monk, who had studied forbidden Syriac Apocrypha, translated it more ominously, the one who knows the shape of God. It made him weep. After that, the recordings were sealed. Labeled Cantus Obscura, the dark chant. Only a handful of copies survive, on warped acetate, locked in leaded chests. But in 1985, a rogue radio technician smuggled one tape out. He digitized it and uploaded it briefly to a closed bulletin board for esoteric musicologists. Most dismissed it. One did not. Dr. Sabine Kolchinsky, an acoustics researcher at a German university, ran the chant through spectral analysis and found something no one expected: geometric harmonics. The waveforms formed a recursive fractal. Not random. Not natural. A visual echo of the Fibonacci sequence. She wrote, "This is not human singing. This is structured information." Her university was contacted by Vatican liaisons within the week. She recanted her analysis. Retired early. Moved to Corsica. Never published again. Still, the recording floats in fragmentary form across fringe corners of the internet. Some versions are just garbled static. Others, clearer. Too clear. Listeners report strange effects, nosebleeds, déjà vu, lucid dreams of subterranean chambers. One anonymous user claimed that, during playback, the lights in his room dimmed rhythmically, matching the chant's pulse. He thought it was coincidence. Until the final syllable repeated on its own. Without the tape playing. The Church has never publicly acknowledged the incident. But internal memos released by a Vatican archivist in 1999 referenced Acoustic Protocol 7D, involving high decibel containment fields, white noise generators, and counterharmonics designed to disrupt pattern emergence from sub-baseline incantation. Translation: soundproof the impossible. One chilling line reads, "Never let it finish the phrase." So what is this voice? A resonance from a being locked beneath Vatican stone? An imprint of the angel's last defiance? Or simply noise misinterpreted by frightened minds? Some researchers believe the chant was not meant to be heard, but responded to. That it is not a message, but a ping. A sonic beacon, waiting for recognition. Others warn it is a liturgical key, a trigger for unlocking spiritual architecture beneath Rome. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the chant remains. And if you ever hear it echo from stone, stop listening before it repeats. You see it before you feel it. A glass case. No plaque. No explanation. Just a solid, vertical stone housed in the Vatican's reliquary annex, accessible only by invitation and oath. It's about the height of your forearm, tapering to a dull point. The surface is obsidian, so black it seems to devour the ambient light. Not polished. Not reflective. Just dark. Like a thought that doesn't want to be remembered. At first glance, it seems ordinary, just another devotional artifact hidden away from tourists. But then you notice the edges. They're unnaturally smooth, sharper than flint yet untouched by tool marks. Along one side, a series of carvings spiral upward, neither Roman nor Hebrew, though something in their rhythm feels eerily familiar. A Vatican geologist in the 1960s was allowed to test the mineral under a grant for cataloging volcanic relics. His report was never published. But an internal memo, now declassified, summarized his findings in 3 words. Composition: terrestrial impossibility. The obsidian matches no known volcanic source. Not from Italy, not from the Mediterranean, not even from Earth's most exotic flows like Lipari or Iceland. The trace elements include thorium-rich silica and an isotope of carbon with a decay pattern inconsistent with Earth's atmospheric history. In short, the obelisk doesn't belong here. Some Vatican scholars claim it was brought during the Crusades, stolen from a ruined temple east of the Euphrates. Others whisper it was recovered from a dig site in the Syrian desert, where a shepherd allegedly fell into a pit that had no bottom and came back raving about the burning eye beneath the stone river. But the most persistent theory, the one the church refuses to comment on, is that the obelisk was not made. It fell. Not from heaven. But from somewhere else. This aligns uncomfortably well with a fringe belief drawn from the Book of Enoch and echoed in the Codex of Silent Watchers, that a watcher, perhaps the first, was not cast down by God, but hurled, wrapped in fire and silence, crashing into earth like a cosmic error. Where he landed, the ground did not break. It liquefied. Turned to glass. Then hardened around him like a tomb. The black obelisk may be a splinter of that impact site. Some who've examined it up close report headaches, tinnitus, or momentary aphasia, the inability to remember their own names. One Jesuit took soil samples from beneath its casing. He was later found scribbling geometric patterns onto his cell walls, repeating a phrase over and over: he is dreaming the shape of the future. The obelisk's carvings, when mapped spatially, appear to form a non-Euclidean spiral, one that cannot be drawn in 2 dimensions without distortion. A mathematician at La Sapienza University once analyzed the spiral and concluded it folded space, not simply decorated it. The church told him to stop. But the carving at the very top of the obelisk, the final glyph, has become an obsession for symbolists. It's an eye. Not stylized. Anatomically exact. Almost photorealistic. Except it has no pupil. Just a hollow center. As if the eye is not seeing, but being seen through. A fragment of oral lore from a lost Nestorian sect describes a stone sentinel, placed upon the breast of a fallen celestial, to bind his gaze inward until the final breath. Some claim this obelisk is that fragment. A spiritual lock. A forgotten collar. Others say it's worse, not a lock, but a beacon. A lure. Designed not to imprison the fallen, but to let others know where he lies. Still, the obelisk comes. You place your hand on the glass and feel nothing. But when you close your eyes, there's a sensation. Verticality. Like falling sideways. Like gravity has forgotten which way is down. You step back. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. And the obelisk, whatever it is, remains exactly where the Vatican has chosen to hide it, not under lock and key, but in plain sight. It isn't flashy. Just a golden amulet, no larger than your palm, encased in a triple-locked reliquary in the papal treasury. Visitors often pass by it without a second glance. After all, the Church has hundreds of golden artifacts. Crosses, rings, reliquaries. Why should this one matter? Until you see the crack. It runs down the center, jagged but clean, splitting the seal of Solomon that spans its face. Two interlocked triangles, one upright, one inverted, forming a six-pointed star, older than its associations with modern religion. Around it, ancient script, neither purely Hebrew nor Arabic, spirals inward. But it's the break that draws attention. A Vatican metallurgist examined the amulet in the 1950s, expecting to find ordinary stress fractures. Instead, the internal grain structure showed signs of deliberate unbinding. As if the object had been opened from within. The amulet has since been reforged. The crack soldered shut with a rare platinum gold alloy, blessed and reconsecrated. Yet the fracture remains visible, like a healed bone that never quite lost its scar. According to the apocryphal Liber Malachim, Solomon crafted 7 seals, not just to control demons, but to seal away the fallen that fell too soon. 1 seal for each watcher. But only one was burned into gold by command of the throne. The primus vinculum, the first binding. This, the Church never confirms. But the amulet storage protocol is highly irregular. It's kept in a lead-lined case, surrounded by sea salt and 7 mirrors angled to reflect each other infinitely. Not tradition. Not symbolic. Functional. An echo chamber of light and intention. Why? Because every 33 years, on the feast of Michael the Archangel, the amulet resonates. Not visibly. Not audibly. But instrumentally. Sensitive barometers placed in the treasury detect a microvibration. Not random. A frequency of exactly 7.13 Hz. The same pitch recorded beneath the sarcophagus chamber. The same pitch found in the reversed Gregorian chant. The same hum measured near the black obelisk. An archivist once remarked, "It's as if they're harmonizing across stone." Others aren't so poetic. A suppressed Vatican report from 1997, labeled internal, NO copy, details a seismic anomaly recorded on that year's feast of St. Michael. A pulse. Originating from sublevel 5, traveling upward through the papal altar, and peaking at the exact moment the amulet began its vibration. The earthquake that followed was minor. But precisely centered beneath Vatican Hill. Coincidence? Perhaps. But a fringe interpretation goes further, that the amulet is not just a seal, but a synchronization device. A tether. When intact, it held the entity in perfect stasis. When cracked, something loosened. When reforged, balance was restored, imperfectly. The Church's official stance. Symbolic artifact. No theological function. But some internal liturgists disagree. 1. Father Lucien Cava, theologian and metaphysicist, wrote in his restricted diary, "Every prison has a key." This one was not lost. It was divided. And the moment we tried to fix it, it became aware. He died of sudden cardiac arrest. His notes were seized. Still, the amulet's imagery appears elsewhere. In a fragmentary wall mosaic found beneath the Basilica of San Clemente, a figure stands beneath a broken hexagram, weeping blood into a chalice. The Latin caption reads, Edi fracta est vincula lucis. And the chains of light were broken. Interpretations vary. Some say the mosaic was warning. Others say it celebrated liberation. But the most unsettling theory? That the seal wasn't meant to imprison the angel at all. It was meant to imprison us, inside a world where it could not interfere. A world of managed illusion. Controlled reality. And now the crack has widened. Scholars still debate whether the Seal of Solomon ever had literal power. But every 33 years, the vibration returns. And no satisfactory explanation has emerged. The amulet sits quietly in its mirrored box. Waiting. Listening. The report is brief. Sterile. Almost bureaucratic. Cleric D.M., ordained exorcist, entered containment chamber at 1403. Emerged 1440. No verbal communication. Exhibited signs of dissociation. Medical leave indefinite. But the reality behind it echoes. The year is 1978. The Vatican has quietly updated its protocol for spiritual disturbance, one not found in the Roman ritual. A subclause under extreme manifestations authorizes the deployment of a singularly trained cleric. Not just in demonology, but in non-aligned theophanies. Which is Church Code 4, we don't know what this is. That priest's name, scrubbed from all formal records, was known to a handful of Jesuits as Father Dominic Morelli. Former professor of patristic theology. Author of 3 published works on pre-Constantinian martyrdom. And then, silence. His last assignment was beneath the Vatican. You won't find a room number. Just a hallway. Steel walls. The same cold hum as Pneuma lock. The door is marked only with a single Latin phrase, non confunditor. He shall not be confounded. Spoiler, he was. The moment the door closed, observers in the control room noticed the temperature drop by 9 degrees. The lights dimmed, not flickered, dimmed, as if the electricity itself had grown nervous. No camera footage survives. The church claims technical failure. Others believe that what occurred could not be captured on any medium man had invented. What we have are second-hand accounts. One technician reported hearing a low, continuous sound. Not growling. Not wind. Chanting. But with syllables too long to form inside a human throat. Another claimed the scent of iron and myrrh filled the observation corridor. Inside, Father Morelli said nothing. But according to bioreadouts later reviewed by Vatican medical staff, his pulse remained at 37 beats per minute. His brainwave patterns spiked into a range normally associated with lucid dreaming. Yet he was wide awake. 37 minutes later, the door opened. He walked out. Didn't speak. Didn't scream. Didn't collapse. He simply handed his crucifix to the nearest observer and whispered, "This is not for that." Then he left. Retired the next day. Moved to a monastery in Sardinia. Never spoke another word. His medical report states, extreme psychological disassociation. No known cause. Eye movement suggests recurring visual hallucinations, though patient is unresponsive to stimulus. Visitors say he spent his final years staring at the sea, tracing geometric shapes in sand with his finger. Always the same, a triangle, a spiral, a vertical line. When he died in 1991, his last possession was a single handwritten note. Not demonic. Not divine. Just, wrong. The church buried him with full honors. But the chamber beneath Vatican Hill was sealed again. The ritual he attempted is no longer taught. Even within exorcist circles, the incident is treated as myth. An aberration. Something outside the clean taxonomy of angels and demons. But others, especially those familiar with the Codex of Silent Watchers, know better. Because that codex names 13 beings who were never judged. Never cast into hell. Only bound. Entities whose refusal to bow to the Maker's plan left them neither damned nor saved, but enclosed. One of them, unnamed, is referred to only as the dreamer behind the gate. Father Morelli may have met it. Some scholars argue this experience confirms fringe beliefs, that the Vatican is not merely a spiritual center, but a containment field. That beneath the marble, under the altars, lies something that cannot be exorcised, because it was never invited. A fallen intelligence. Not rebellious. Not hostile. Simply, incompatible. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. The chamber remains closed. And no other exorcist has returned. It should have left a trace. A meeting of 13 bishops. Called in secret. Held within the walls of the Vatican in the autumn of 1857. No public record. No correspondence. No encyclicals or apostolic acts. Yet the evidence whispers from behind sealed covers and incomplete ledgers. You find it by accident, inside the margins of a shipping manifest dated September 16, 1857. The handwriting is hurried. Un-Vatican-like. Arrived, 13. Lodged underground. Doors sealed. No Massachusetts. No public audience. Papers burned. No names are given. Only initials, D, F, M, T, H. The entry ends with a single Latin phrase, non est homo, nec demonium. He is neither man, nor demon. Whatever happened over those 3 days was not a council, not a doctrinal summit. It was something else. An event so far outside the bounds of tradition that even the Church's usual velvet secrecy seems inadequate. So why was it called? Some believe it followed an unusual discovery made during restoration work beneath the Vatican. A chamber was uncovered, possibly older than Rome itself, containing stone fragments covered in writing no one could read. Except, perhaps, those 13 bishops. One scroll, now lost but once catalogued under Lamina Petrae 7Q, was described as engraved in unburnable script, which speaks though it has no voice. Whatever it said, it summoned 13 of the most theologically extreme voices in the Church, men known for hardline orthodoxy, relic obsession, or esoteric leanings. Each with a history of requesting private access to Apocrypha. Each with unexplained gaps in their service records. And all vanished from public view after the synod. Gone. No letters. No funerals. No transfer notices. The only remaining trace is a half-burnt page discovered in 1932 behind a bookshelf in the Pontifical Lateran Library. Scholars attribute it to the synod, though even that attribution is disputed. The page reads, "We do not meet to decide. We meet to witness." The seal is not holding. And the name returns. No name is listed. Just a single sigil at the bottom, a triangle intersected by a vertical line, nearly identical to the one found on the broken seal of Solomon. This suggests that what brought those 13 men together was not theological. Not political. It was custodial. They were called not to lead, but to watch. Fringe theologians believe the synod may have conducted a ritual, not an exorcism, but a reaffirmation. A reinforcement of containment protocols dating back to Solomon or earlier. Not mythic ritual. Structural. Sound. Light. Ratio. Words spoken in a frequency too old for written language. Supporting this theory, one disused sub-basement, sublevel 4 gamma, contains a now decommissioned chamber with circular acoustics, angled walls, and lead inlays forming concentric symbols on the floor. Not a chapel. Not a crypt. Something else. A resonance chamber. During its brief activation in the mid-19th century, reports from above-ground clergy noted auditory phenomena, low-frequency droning, whispered syllables, and the sudden flocking of pigeons in concentric circles above St. Peter's Square. The chamber was sealed with concrete in 1860. The 13 bishops were never mentioned again. But their names, at least a few, appear in a non-canonical list stored in a private ledger belonging to Pope Pius IX. Titled, Custodes Umbri, the Keepers of the Shadow. Each line is followed by a date. The final one, March 17, 1906. Marked, Nulla Responsio. No response. Whatever the bishops had watched over, had responded back. The Vatican has never acknowledged the synod. Historians still debate whether the evidence points to real events or apocalyptic allegory. But even skeptics struggle to explain the archival blackout from that precise week in 1857. Pages missing. Records redacted. An entire window of history, closed by invisible hands. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the silence left behind is deafening. And somewhere beneath the stone, the name returns. You don't expect to find a chalice down here. Not this far beneath Vatican soil. Not in a chamber that predates Christianity. And certainly not one resting inside a glass cube, surrounded by 14 floor tiles arranged in a perfect spiral, a spiral that matches nothing in Roman design, nothing in ecclesiastical architecture, and nothing in current Vatican records. The chalice itself is unremarkable at first glance. Bronze, hand-forged, etched with small, almost lazy glyphs around the base. The bowl is shallow. Its stem worn smooth by time or ritual. But the liquid inside? Thick. Black-red. Coagulated, yet gleaming under the low halogen lights. It never congeals. Never evaporates. Never reduces. Over a century of observation, it has remained chemically stable, even as everything around it ages. Tests, conducted unofficially by a team of Jesuit scientists in 1924, revealed the unthinkable. The blood contains human DNA. And also, it doesn't. At a molecular level, it's organic, but not consistent with any known blood type. High iron content. Zero hemoglobin. And more disturbingly, trace elements found only in certain meteorites and deep ocean volcanic vents. The scientists didn't publish their findings. Most entered retreat. One committed suicide. Another asked to be excommunicated, claiming he had tasted something in the air that could not be named. Still, the church kept the chalice. Behind glass. Beneath stone. Surrounded by rituals that look like maintenance but are really something else, geometric salt circles repainted monthly. Gregorian chants played at low volume over hidden speakers. And a single candle, always burning, kept 3 feet from the glass, its flame unwavering in the stale, stagnant air. They say the chalice arrived in the 15th century, smuggled from the Levant by an order of custodians, who believed it to be a relic of the first fall, not Eden, not the garden, but the sky. The place the watcher fell from. According to obscure Gnostic texts, when the first of the fallen hit the earth, he did not weep. He bled. Not from pain, but from separation. That blood was said to burn soil, to stain stone, to render holy ground unstable. Some believe this chalice caught the first of that blood. Not metaphorically. Not liturgically. Literally. The Codex of Silent Watchers contains a single line about it, the cup that tastes of exile. The blood of uncreation. Others refer to it as vas invertus, the inverted grail. A mockery of Christ's cup. Not for salvation, but for silence. Whatever it is, it reacts to sound. When Gregorian chants are played, the liquid swells. Not visibly. But on spectrometer readings, its surface tension changes. As if, listening. As if remembering. In 1973, a well-meaning scientist attempted to draw a small sample for further analysis. The moment his pipette touched the liquid, the lights blew out. Every bulb. every fuse. A surge traced its way up from the chamber into the Sistine Chapel above, overloading 3 systems, stopping 2 elevators, and corrupting a week's worth of digital Vatican records. The blood never left the chalice. The scientist left the church. And the church left the chalice untouched. Scholars argue whether this artifact is symbolic, some ancient ritual container mistaken for a supernatural relic. But then there's the whisper. On at least 4 occasions, recorded independently by maintenance staff, a low, guttural whisper has been heard emanating from the chalice at 3:33 a.m. Always the same phrase. Different ears, same words. Dormit sub flu mine. He sleeps beneath the river. No river has ever flowed beneath Vatican Hill. But a 1940s geological survey found that the strata under St. Peter's Basilica contains a dry, hollow channel carved into basalt. It runs straight beneath the papal altar, and ends at the sarcophagus chamber. Some believe it was once filled with water. Or something else. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the blood remains. And the whisper returns. There are rooms the Vatican won't admit to. And then there's the one they refuse to even name. Some call it the Chamber of Stillness. Others, more quietly, call it the cell. You descend to it through layers of denial, literal and bureaucratic. The path is unlit after sublevel 5. The walls shift from stone to metal, then from metal to something else, composite, dense, soundproofed in ways not even military-grade containment protocols require. Temperature, fixed at 3 degrees Celsius. Humidity, 0%. Motion sensors, always active. Noise levels, flatline, except for one permanent, faint frequency hovering at 7.13 Hz. You aren't allowed to enter. But custodial staff, those with the highest security clearances and the lowest theological training, have reported glimpses. They say the cell is not large. No furniture. No crucifixes. No ornamentation. Just a sealed chamber in the shape of a dodecagon, 12 equal sides, precisely carved, blackened by time or heat or something older. In the center, there is a structure. Not quite a chair. Not quite an altar. A slab. Metallic. Low to the floor. With what looks like manacles, one at each corner. And on that slab, something humanoid. Slumped. Bound. Eyes closed. Wings folded tightly behind its back like pages in a closed book. But it is not asleep. Not dreaming. Simply, waiting. It wears no robes. No armor. No glowing crown. But everyone who has seen it reports the same detail. The skin is pale, almost luminescent, marked with faint lines of silver that pulse slowly, like veins carrying not blood, but memory. The mouth is sewn shut. Not recently. Not with string. With something darker, iron threads that hum softly when the Gregorian chants play overhead. These chants aren't ceremonial. They're essential. Piped in 24/7 via concealed speakers, composed of reverse liturgical sequences designed not to praise, but to stabilize. A Benedictine acoustic specialist once confessed, under seal, that the chants were mathematically necessary. Without them, resonance builds. The air thickens. The room changes. One term recurs in internal memos: neural drift. The cell alters perception. Chronology. Identity. One night shift guard spent just 40 minutes stationed outside and returned unable to recall his own name. Another developed acute synesthesia, hearing the hum of the air as colors, tasting voices, forgetting how to speak anything but a dead dialect of Aramaic. And then there are the dreams. Not nightmares. Dreams of flight. Of infinite architecture. Of holding a language in your palm like fire. Staff rotation is required every 33 hours. There's a small glass slit in the cell's door, for inspection. But most stop looking after their first watch. Not from fear. From shame. Because, as one cleric confessed anonymously, you look at it and it knows. Knows where you're broken. Knows what you regret. And it doesn't pity you. It simply remembers you. The entity has never moved. Yet motion detectors sometimes spike. Heart rate monitors, if that's what they are, report a single, slow pulse. One beat every 4 minutes. As if whatever lies inside is operating on a time scale alien to life. A 1968 document, classified as Clericus Intra Nullum, describes a proposal to destroy the entity. The page is stamped voided. Handwritten at the bottom in red ink. Destruction is not a function. Containment is alignment. Scholars who study apocryphal cosmology point to the Book of Enoch, which names several of the fallen watchers who taught forbidden things. One, unnamed, was said to possess the knowledge of resonance, language, geometry, and will. He did not defy out of pride, but out of refusal to diminish. Some believe this is him. Others claim the being is not a watcher at all, but a fragment. A shard of something that predated the angelic order. A memory of a former design. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the cell remains locked. And every 12 hours, someone new is sent to stand beside it, just long enough to confirm. Yes. He is still there. There's no official mention. No parchment, no papal bull, no line in canon law. But the rumors persist. Some call it Protocol 9. Others, more darkly, refer to it only as the flight. You first hear of it in a conversation that shouldn't have happened, between two logistics officers inside a Vatican substation near Ciampino. One speaks quietly, almost rehearsed, if the resonance exceeds 11 dB, we launch. We don't wait. You pretend not to hear. But once the term is lodged in your mind, it starts appearing everywhere. A reference buried in the footnotes of a Jesuit aeronautics journal. A satellite path traced over the Atlantic Trench, launched but never logged. An airstrip maintained in secrecy on the outskirts of Castel Gandolfo, longer than any runway has reason to be. And then there's the cargo manifest. Found in a locked drawer beneath a disused seminary office. One item. 3 lines. Object. Reliquary, 1X unit, code Solis Angulum. Condition. Cold sealed. Pulse monitored. Vocal dormant. Destination. NCC Trench Quadrant 7, drop depth 11,003 m. You check the location. It's the Puerto Rico Trench, one of the deepest points in the Atlantic. Remote. Silent. Inescapable. And the payload? An anonymous Vatican source later confirms, it's not what's in the reliquary that matters. It's what the reliquary knows how to hold. Protocol 9 is not an evacuation. It's an exorcism. Of the Earth. One final option if containment fails. The plane is real, a retrofitted long-range cargo jet, disguised as a humanitarian vessel. No tail insignia. Pilots drawn from a rotating corps of clergy-trained specialists, fluent in Aramaic, geometry, and classified liturgical code. The plane is stationed in Rome. Always fueled. Always pre-cleared for immediate departure. Its flight path takes it west, out of Roman airspace, over the Atlantic, and directly above the drop point, where oceanic pressure exceeds any man-made structure's tolerance. The idea is simple. If the cell fails, the being is not allowed to remain on land. A pope from the early 20th century, Pius XI, is rumored to have said, "Let him fall again, into water this time. And this time, let the water remember." Fringe theorists suggest the ocean itself has been part of the containment strategy for centuries. That specific trenches were cut during Earth's formation. Not by tectonics, but by celestial intervention. A planetary fallback for when stone and wood and iron fail. Others believe Protocol 9 was inspired not by scripture, but by a response. In 1954, seismic buoys in the Mediterranean registered a pulse, one that radiated outward from beneath the Vatican, passed beneath the seafloor, and echoed back 13 hours later, from the exact coordinates of the Puerto Rico Trench. The same resonance. Same frequency. As if something out there acknowledged what lay in Rome. Or was already waiting. The theological implications are disquieting. Not just that the being is real, but that it has kin. Or worse, that what's under the Vatican isn't imprisoned. It's bait. Protocol 9's existence is denied, of course. The Vatican press office has no comment. Military contractors who may or may not have outfitted the plane refuse to confirm its serial number. But the protocol's final line, scrawled in a margin of a restricted operations ledger, has survived. It reads, "Upon breach, load, fly, drop. Pray that the water is deep enough." No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the plane is always fueled. And somewhere beneath Rome, the pressure builds. It's just sound. That's what they say. Just another ambient anomaly. A hum of ancient stone settling. A byproduct of underground acoustics. Harmless. Except it isn't. It happens every night. At 3:33 a.m. The altar of St. Peter's Basilica, the very heart of Vatican worship, rests above a substructure riddled with catacombs, support vaults, acoustic channels, and sealed rooms even most clergy aren't aware of. But hidden among those layers is one microphone. Unmarked. Buried 20 meters beneath the altar. Originally placed in the 1990s by an engineering team tasked with analyzing seismic stress. It should have recorded the usual, groundwater vibration, bedrock shifts, thermal expansion. Instead, it records a voice. 5 syllables. Same pitch. Same breath. Every single night. Whispered just once. Then silence. No known language. But always the same phrase. No vocal signature has ever matched it, not from humans, not animals, not synthetic simulations. Linguists have attempted phonetic reconstructions. Some say it mimics early Sumerian vowel harmonics. Others insist it resembles reversed Proto-Hittite. One fringe theorist claims the words, when modeled in cymatic sand vibrations, form a spiral identical to the glyph on the black obelisk. Vatican protocol has no official response. But unofficially, they've changed the altar's substructure 3 times since 2001. Redesigned ventilation. Swapped materials. They even installed resonance dampening foam. The whisper remains. It's audible only to the microphone. Never the human ear. Yet those who work night shifts inside the basilica, cleaners, guards, the occasional insomniac priest, report dreams. Not nightmares. Visions. Stone halls lined with unreadable script. Eyes stitched shut. Figures kneeling in cold rooms, whispering truths that make memory bleed. One sacristan dreamed of the voice calling his name, before he ever heard of the whisper. He quit the next day. The church dismisses the phenomenon publicly. Ambient resonance. Audio malfunction. Digital corruption. And yet, they keep recording. The files are stored on analog tape. Not digital. Too many unexplained distortions. Too many corrupted files when attempted on modern systems. The tapes are labeled only by date. But someone, unknown, has written a phrase across their boxes in Latin. Ad hoc vigilat. He is still watching. Some believe the whisper is residual, an echo of a presence once active. Others argue it's active, a message broadcast every night across layers of stone, hoping someone above will listen long enough to understand. But there's a third theory. That the whisper isn't calling out at all. It's counting. Each syllable, a measure of containment. Each breath, a recalibration of its prison. And the moment it stops whispering, is the moment it wakes. A 2007 memo discovered in an accidentally declassified Vatican report mentions a term never seen before or since. Ecclesia abducta. The Church's cover. The implication is subtle, chilling. That the Basilica itself was built not to honor Peter, but to suppress something older. That the true function of worship here is not communion, but compression. No satisfactory explanation has emerged. But the whisper continues. And every night, beneath the holiest altar in Christendom, something speaks. And now, the Basilica sleeps. Above, tourists wander by day. Pilgrims kneel in silence, guided by faith, unaware of what hums beneath the marble. They light candles, whisper prayers, touch stone polished smooth by 1,000 years of belief. But you know what lies deeper. You followed the whisper through the sublevels, past sarcophagi no pope has seen, beneath chambers not drawn on any blueprint. You've seen the cracks in the seal, heard the chant no choir rehearsed. You've walked beside the cell, not inside, not yet, but near enough to feel the stillness. Stillness that waits. And through it all, the same pattern repeats. Stone. Blood. Name. Silence. What do you make of it? Some say this is just mythology, dramatized fragments of early church anxieties, shaped by fear and darkness. Others suspect it's a managed narrative, threads of containment buried not by mistake, but design. And then there are those who believe it's all real. Not metaphor. Not symbol. That beneath the altar, beneath the rituals, beneath the song and the cross and the light, there is a presence that watches. It does not rage. It remembers. Maybe that's the most terrifying thing. Not what it is, but what it will never forget. So tonight, as you ease into sleep, carry the story softly. Let the hum fade into the low rhythm of your breathing. Let the names and sigils dissolve into the dark. Let the cold stone beneath Vatican Hill remain untouched, sealed, dreamless, just for now. And if you wake at 3:33, don't listen too closely. Not tonight.